Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. It's 7:01 p.m. We're meeting over Zoom pursuant to the Mass General Law. We're meeting on Zoom appropriately under the governor's executive order. So we have a public hearing tonight. The first one is 764 Belmont Street. Mr. Leitner.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Ken Leitner, and I apologize for the darkness of my picture. I took it to the computer store today and they said my camera's working, but I must have done something wrong. But to begin, I represent the property owner, which is the 764 Belmont Street LLC. 764 Belmont Street is between Carroll, is one house down off of Carroll. And just a quick history of the property itself. This was originally two lots, the original two-family on the corner, and there was a vacant lot. In 1960, they subdivided the lot, and the ranch that is on there now was constructed in 1960. And, you know, just by way of perspective, if this application had been made when the demolition delay ordinance was originally passed in 1997, the house would have only been 37 years old. But with time now, it's become it's come out of the purview of the demolition delay ordinance. But it's a fairly newer house regarding the petitions you generally see. It's a simple ranch. In 1904, the property was sold by the estate of James Russell Lowell. He owned 3 lots, 2 of them on Carroll and another one on Belmont Street. Transferred out a couple times after that. In 1927, the Telechia family purchased the house on the corner of Carroll and Belmont. And in 1960, they subdivided it so that they formed another lot, and they constructed the ranch house there. And then they sold the two-family in 1960. So the Telechia family has owned it all this time until fairly recently purchased by the 764 Belmont Street LLC. The house itself is a nondescript ranch. I'm sure its form followed its function. It was very nice for the Telechia family, but really in viewing it, this is one I can honestly say I didn't see anything significantly historical about this house. It's a ranch. There are, there's probably 200 other ranches in Watertown, especially down off of Main Street, and there's nothing that stands out about it. It's a fairly new house, as I said, constructed in 1960, and no one historically significant has resided in the house from the time of its construction to the present. So I'll keep my presentation pithy. I really couldn't find anything historical about this house or the inhabitants of the house. And with that, would ask that you don't find it preferably preserved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leitner. Do any members of the commission have any questions?
No, I don't.
This is David. I don't either. Marilyn, do you have any questions? Susan?
Joe Canto shook his head no, I think.
Yeah, I said no. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but no.
We can hear you.
Susan, you're muted.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
you can
Okay.
either use the
Yep. I don't have any questions about the demolition. No.
This is David. I guess the one question I do have is, in the materials, I didn't see what was the proposed reuse exactly, the plans.
We did submit elevations for it. It's going to be a two-family. Gideon had just put some pictures up I had seen on the screen of it.
Yeah, David doesn't have access to that, but it was submitted in the plans. David, I think it's page 11 of the plans that they submitted.
Okay.
It was originally on a larger format, so they scanned it and it's broken in half, but it's page 11 and 12 of it. And it's a two plus story two-family with two center doors in the, front-facing, two sets of smaller gables and a main gable across the face of the house.
Thank you.
Oh, I see what you mean, David. It looks like it's clapboards.
Do you want me to share the screen again for the other board members, or are you good?
Me? I'm good. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not talking to me.
That's fine. Are there any other comments from the commission?
No.
Okay, so now is the opportunity for members of the public, if anyone, any abutters or anyone else who has any information for the commission to help us better understand the historic nature of the building or the neighborhood. Now is your opportunity.
So this is Gideon Schreiber. I would suggest that if you are here to speak to this, you can unmute and turn on your camera if you have one. Susan, also, can you just confirm if you're looking at email as well, if there's any comments that might have been submitted, but.
Are you speaking to me, Susan? Gideon?
Was there any emails submitted prior to this, since that your email contact was on the agenda as an alternate, if people didn't have access?
Oh, I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. No, I had no contact from the public. I had no phone calls from the public, no.
It doesn't, David, just so you know, it does not look like anybody has raised their hand or indicated any comments.
Okay, great. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing. And what do members of the commission think?
Well, I'll go first. I don't see the house as having any particular distinction in architectural character. It's a perfectly nice single-family house. I did look at the buildings up and down the street there, and they're practically all 2.5-story houses. This is the outlier, you might say. It's the one that isn't really in harmony with the other buildings, at least on that side of the street.
I'll agree with Tom on that.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't
any
have
other
much to add. I agree. I think it does look a little out of place, and I see no historical significance from an architectural standpoint.
I agree.
I hate to say it, but I agree.
All right. So does someone wish to make a motion?
Well, I move that the property at 764, is it 764 Belmont? Yeah.
Yes.
Street is not preferably preserved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll
I'll second
second.
it. Oh, all you, Susan.
Why don't we say that that Mr. Panto seconded it? Any discussion? Okay, so we have to do a roll call. So let me just get to my agenda so I can get everyone's name and not make a mistake. Okay. So Commissioner Roach.
Not preferably preserved.
Okay. So you vote, okay. So what we're doing is you'd be voting in favor of, it's not preferably preserved.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Commissioner Malone.
Yes, not
Commissioner
preferably
Steele.
preserved.
Okay, Commissioner Steele.
Yes, not preferably preserved.
Okay. Commissioner Panto.
Yes, not preferably preserved.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes.
And this is David Russo. I'll vote yes as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to sign off. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Is Elise back?
I am.
Okay, I gratefully hand the reins back to you.
Thank you, David, for handling that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public hearing for property 142 Forest Street. It's to review the demolition application for a one-family home built in 1924, including accessory structures. The petitioner or applicant is Cal McCarthy. Cal, you done?
While he's talking, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the plans. Does that
Okay.
sound good too?
Sure.
Oops.
What?
So as he's sharing the screen, you can go ahead and start, Mr. McCarthy.
Sure. So this is a single-family home built in 1924. It's a colonial of sorts with a hip roof. It's in a two-family zone, and I was proposing to demolish the existing single family and build two townhouses. The house itself is in pretty tough shape. Foundation is okay, but the frame is in pretty bad shape. Everything inside the house is in pretty bad shape. It's not, I wouldn't say it's an outlier. There's the house to the left of it has the same style. Other than the house to the left of it, there aren't many of these left really. There aren't many of the hip roofs and the actually not even tons of single families left. Most of these there's a bunch of these projects going on in the neighborhood, or that had already been developed in the last 10-15 years. As far as the residents, originally in 1924 to 1946, it was the Tevakelian family, and they sold to Stephen Barmakian in 1946. I assume he was in the war, so I guess when he came back from Europe, he bought the house, and he had been in it since until 2017 when he had sold. Actually, I don't know if he sold or his estate sold. I think it was his estate that actually sold. So he was there from 1946 to 2017 when Gate Company LLC bought the property. And I don't know if everyone can hear my 9-month-old screaming at the top of his lungs, but sorry about that.
All right.
I had a feeling he would make
Doesn't he know you're on Zoom, Mr. McCarthy? Really?
I was like, please don't make me go viral tonight. All I could think of was that video of whoever it was, and the kid runs in the back and like jumps on his dad's lap in the middle of like CNN or something. I'm like, guys, just don't make me go viral tonight. So yeah, that's my story. The house now is 25 feet. Our house would be 28 feet, but it would be set further back. The driveways don't work as is, but I have a plan for that. The building would stay the same, so I just figured I'd get through this first and then change the driveways.
Okay. Do you have anything further, or?
Nope, that's about it. I think there are pictures somewhere that I passed in of the interior, which is pretty bad. It's kind of a roll of the dice walking up the stairs and walking on the first floor there.
I apologize.
Yeah, so those
I don't have those.
This is what I wanted to ask you about. There's reference to water leakage. You didn't mention anything about that particularly, but how extensive is that, or was that?
So I don't know if someone had fixed it because I haven't been up on the roof, but it's definitely, well, two things. One is I believe that there were frozen pipes everywhere because there's been a bunch of demo done in random spots, and then old pipes patched in with new PEX tubing. So I think there were freeze ups and water damage from that, which is why like in the kitchen you'll see there was just a bunch of demo that had been done, and you'll see new blue PEX tubing. However, I also think, well, I know that, I just don't know if it was remedied. There was absolutely damage, water damage through the roof, because the ceiling is demoed on the second floor, and then directly under it, the floor is soft. Right when you walk in the house, the front foyer, that floor is soft. And above that, on the second floor, is where the ceiling had been demoed, and there's water stains coming down the walls. So I don't know the story with the roof, and I haven't been on the roof, but I know for sure that there was absolutely water damage. It looked like someone may have tried to tackle some of this stuff just to maybe stretch out, make it habitable for a few more years or something. But I mean, there's no kitchen in the entire. It's pretty uninhabitable. And frame wise, so it's the old dimensional lumber, and it's long spanning lumber. So the whole house basically sags into the chimney, which is kind of what I find in tons of these old houses, because the weight is bearing, basically the way they box the frame around the chimney, everything has sagged into that. And it's by probably 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches from the foundation into the chimney.
Okay. For the commissioners, do any of the commissioners have any questions for this applicant?
I have a question about your new proposed two-family. What are the materials you'll be using on the outside?
It would be a vinyl siding, like a double 4-inch vinyl siding, similar to there's not my direct abutters, but further to the left, there's a lot of new townhouses, and it's pretty much the same thing. So it would be asphalt. It'd be a architectural shingle on the roof, and then vinyl siding for the exterior.
Have you put any thought into renovating it and keeping it as a single family?
Yeah, I did, initially. It's in really tough shape. It's really tight to the property line on the left side. The porch is it would be a lot of work, and at the end you're stuck with an old frame, and I love old houses, and I try to make something out of old houses often for customers and when I do rehabs. But I like the aesthetics of it, but it's a bummer that it's an old frame underneath, because this frame is in tough shape. And I don't want to shim floors and then not remedy you still have old dimensional lumber that's really spanning too long. You have bellied floors in all of the bedrooms, so I've renovated stuff like this plenty of times, but it's kind of a shame to do so, to be honest with you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Now we'll open it up to the public. If there's anybody on that has any questions for this applicant.
Hi, this is Jason Gardam. I have a question. What's the height relative to the current structure and the structure immediately to the left of it?
So the structure to the left of it is 3 feet. My house would be 3 feet higher from the ground to the ridge. However, the house to the left of it sits a couple feet higher, just natural elevation. So at the end of the day, if you were standing back on the street looking at the two houses, they're about the same height. And then the house in the back, so because this is a two-family, one behind the other, and the land slopes down towards the back of the lot, the unit in the back is stepped down 2 feet. So the rear unit is even lower than the front unit.
And can I ask what the plan for the driveway is?
Basically, mirror image. So when you look at the plans, the driveway on the right, which is just on the right of the, tight to the right property line, there's a 4-foot buffer, which is, the zoning regulation in Watertown, but that it's basically the same thing. So there would just be a driveway on the left and a driveway on the right, rather than my plan shows like a turnaround in the front yard, and that's not doable, and it's not even feasible on it looked good on paper, but just doesn't even make sense. It's not enough room to turn around, and there's no front yard parking in Watertown. So basically it's the parking on the left will be exactly the same as the parking on the right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll close the hearing for discussion amongst the commissioners. So commissioners, I'm just gonna go through a roll. It'll make it easier since I can see your faces. Susan, do you have any comments or questions? Discussion?
Discussions. Well, I'm sorry it's in such bad shape. I saw the pictures. It really is in bad shape, and I really appreciate your willingness to consider renovating it. I guess it's I guess the only thing that was a question I didn't ask was that I wish the siding weren't vinyl.
You wish, I'm sorry, what?
I wish the siding were not vinyl, but
Oh.
I know there are a lot of issues that go into making decision about materials.
Yeah, so for one, I hate hardy plank, and I think in 10 years it's going to be, or maybe not 10, I think in 15 years, I think once the colors start to fade, everyone's going to go, oh boy, maybe hardy plank wasn't the thing. And I can already see it swelling when they say it's like the first generation Trex or composite decking. It was forever until all of a sudden it wasn't forever anymore. I think the hardy plank is going to swell because I've already seen it, and I've already replaced hardy plank that isn't that old, maybe 10 or 12 years old. And cedar clap is good, but it's going to have to be painted every 5 years, or maybe 7 years if you do an oil, a good paint job. So you're kind of burdening the buyers with the future residents with the responsibility to do it, and then it just costs a fortune to do. So I think if anything, I'd be happy to do like I know it's still vinyl, and I don't know if you hate it as much as you hate double 4-inch vinyl, but if it were like the cedar impressions in the front or something, it's still vinyl. So I'm not trying to sell it as something that it's not, but it's the closest thing while not burdening you with the constant upkeep, basically. So I'd be happy to do that, and it wouldn't even be much of a concession because someone will like it and someone will appreciate it. So I would do cedar impressions in the front. I'm not, I don't know if that makes things any better.
Thank you for the discussion, Mr. McCarthy and Susan. This is discussion.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yes, shame on you, young lady. But if you want to talk to the commissioners, and again, Mr. McCarthy, not your fault. Thank you for answering her. But Susan, do you want to talk amongst the commission about that, or do you have anything else you want to talk about, or else should I move to another commissioner?
No, you can go to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Mr. Malone, Tom, do you have anything you want to discuss with the commission?
Well, I do want to say that I looked carefully at the photographs that were submitted, and it's clear that the building is not in very good condition. Really rather bad. And what Mr. McCarthy has told us actually kind of reinforces my question about renovation of the building. It's basically one of those classic 4-square buildings that is often very nice. But if indeed it's sagging and has had water damage, it might be extraordinarily expensive to restore it as a single family house. Also, I do, again, many of the houses up and down that street there are other 2 families and even 3 families. So I just don't feel strongly that we should fight to preserve it.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you have anything you want to comment or discuss with the commission?
I mean, I think it's just a shame because I actually think it's a cute house. And I think, as Mr. McCarthy said, there's not many of these left, both single family and this style left in Watertown. So, I mean, that just makes me want to keep it even more. The inside doesn't look good, but again, I'm not someone that would be able to go in and tell you whether it can be restored or not, as well as someone who has the credentials to do so. But I like that. I think it's a cute house, and it's a shame that there's not many of these left.
Thank you. Matthew, do you want to unmute yourself, and do you have any comments or discussion for the commission?
I don't think the house rises to the level of something that's preferably preserved. And to me, it's not just the condition. If that was a beautifully maintained house, I don't think I could justify saying, that 4-square house, we need to preserve that. And, I want to put a 1-year delay on that. I mean, I like that style. And I thought, it was kind of cool that the inside had natural woodwork. I mean, sure, someone who was motivated might want to make something nice out of it, but is it my role to say that that house needs to be preserved because of its intrinsic assets, despite the condition? I would say no. And I think from tonight's hearing, probably for all 3 houses, really, to me, says that we don't so much have a problem in this town with what's being torn down. Sometimes we do, but for the most part, I think the houses being torn down don't really need to be preserved. But I feel that where the town is really losing out here is that we have so little development control, so little input and design review that basically if it meets the zoning criteria, then it gets built. And if vinyl siding is the cheapest way to do it, then it's vinyl siding. And, I think that the town is very profitable for developers and we should be demanding more. And yes, wood siding is expensive to maintain, but that's incumbent on people who own property in Watertown, as far as I'm concerned. That's something we could expect if we had the political will to ask that and have design review, which we should, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Marilyn, do you have
Yeah.
anything you want to say?
Well, the water damage works against it, I'm afraid. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good, because I keep getting low bandwidth messages. It doesn't look as savable as others might be. So, hate to say it, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Marilyn. And David Russo?
Hello. Yes. I was sorry to see the condition of the interior. I think if I were to make a decision based on the condition of the interior, I think I'd want to see more. I'd want to see an engineer's report or something rather than just pictures that I don't know exactly what I'm seeing. I'm not a professional in some of these things, so I think it would be helpful to have a professional opinion, maybe from an engineer or others, about the condition of the house. So I don't make a decision based on that. I do see that that the integrity of the house is somewhat compromised from the addition, the enclosure of the front porch, the siding, among other things. So I think this could absolutely be a beautiful house that anyone would absolutely love to own, but I'm not sure it rises to the level for me for preferably preserved.
Okay, if there's no further discussion amongst the commission, do I hear a motion?
Make the motion
Matthew, what is your motion?
that the property at whatever number it is, Forest Street, is not preferably preserved.
So I'm just going to rephrase it to 142, that the property at 142 Forest Street is not preferably preserved. That's your motion?
Yes,
Anybody
it
want,
is. Thank you, Elise.
anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Susan seconds the motion. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Actually, I have to roll call it. Sorry, I thought we were in the town hall. Tom, in favor
Yes.
or against? In
What?
favor? You vote yay or nay for the motion?
Well, yes means I'm supporting the idea of not being preferably preserved.
Okay, Susan,
Not preferably preserved.
Joe? Joe, I can't hear you.
Yes, I favor the motion.
Marilyn
Yes, not preferably preserved.
and David?
Yes.
And I vote not preferably preserved. So it's unanimous. The motion passes, not preferably preserved for 142 Forest Street.
Great. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Have a good night, everybody. I have some fires to put out over here.
Have a good night.
Night. 38 York Ave. To review the demolition application for can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm. Yep.
To review the demolition application for a one-family home built in 1954, including accessory structures. Daryl Sanders is the applicant. And is Daryl here?
It's Patty.
Yes, my name's Daryl Sanders, and everyone hears me okay?
Yes.
So we
Yep.
have,
What?
I have my partner, Scott Miller. He's also here on the Zoom. This is very weird for me because I don't Zoom ever.
You're doing a fine job.
But
Do you want me to share
we're
the
just
plan?
proposing we did a little history search on the street itself, and the street started out in the 1930s, and it started out as two families only. And the single families didn't come into play until the late 1950s. As far as the owners, I don't see anybody significant that lived there or owned the house in the past. I don't see any significant architects that came up with the design, but it is a typical Cape. It's in just like the past property that was being talked about. It has a lot of damage and a lot of wear and tear on it, inside and out, a lot of rot, and it also has water damage on the backside that I don't think anyone attended to, but I didn't take pictures because I was more interested in the history of the home when I was looking it up. That's really, the house to the left of it is going to be about the same height as what we'll be building. Maybe we'll be a little bit higher than that. Actually, no, about the same height, 2.5 story. And our design that we're proposing goes what I think really well with the street as a whole, and keeps that same Cape look. And we're going to be using hardy plank. We actually use a lot of high-end materials in our designs. We take a lot of pride in what we build. We'll be using hardy plank on the exterior. On the interior, we'll be using 4 1/4 casings, and they're normally custom casings going around the windows and doors. We generally use 2-panel doors, and what exists there now is vinyl siding, And the moldings are all typical 2.5-inch colonial moldings, standard colonial moldings that are used today. And it has speed base for baseboard inside. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
You mentioned the property on one side. What is on the other side of this property? Was there a picture of that we didn't see?
It is a Cape style home.
Yeah,
Tom, are you
There's
referring
another
to the
case.
right and left of the property?
Let's see, it would be, at least in the pictures you're looking at, be to the left of the property.
Yeah, there's a picture in the packet to the left of the property.
Uh-huh.
Here
Could we
it
see
is.
that? Could we see that?
Do you see it?
I see, okay. Mhm.
So it's flanked by 2 capes, I think.
No,
Um,
the
No,
one on the right is,
This is to the right, looking at the house of 44 York on the right. This is to the left, 32 York,
yeah.
Garrison
Yes.
Colonial.
Okay,
and then across the street are Garrison Colonials.
Across the street are townhomes,
Right.
two-family duplex,
Hmm.
built in the 30s.
Any other questions for the applicant? Susan?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Joe?
Nope, no questions.
Matthew?
No, I'm all set.
Marilyn?
Can't think of any.
And David?
No, thank you.
Tom? Anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, now we'll open it up to the public for questions. If anyone from the public has any questions. Okay, seeing no questions from the public, I'm going to close the hearing. And the commissioners will discuss amongst themselves. I'm probably going to just go down the roll. Tom, what do you want to say about this property, if anything?
Well, I didn't see anything about what the inside is like, but in general, it's the kind of property that probably someone could renovate. But I don't know the details of what it's like inside. Also, this particular arrangement, it's a side-by-side two-family that's proposed rather than the front to back, I guess because it's a wide lot. And it would not be out of harmony with the building to the right-hand side or the buildings across the street, even though there are clearly some small single-family capes like it down the street. I don't see the house as being very distinguished in architecture. Perfectly nice looking. That's my comment.
Thank you. Matthew, do you have anything to comment or discuss about this property with the commission?
I don't see any reason to preserve the property, and I'm encouraged that the developers have expressed a pride in their products. That's always a good thing. I hope they give us something on the outside, at least, which we can agree with. There's something to be proud of in Watertown.
Thank you. Susan?
I agree with Matthew.
Okay. Anything else? No? Susan?
No, nothing else.
What about
Oh,
David?
sorry.
What?
Oh.
You froze on me. You froze. I couldn't
Oh,
tell.
okay.
Okay. Joe, any comment?
Yeah, I don't have anything really to add to the conversation other than I agree with the rest of them.
Okay. Marilyn?
Yes, pretty much, although it seems in better shape than the one we just looked at.
Okay. David?
So, yeah, a few comments. The building permit that Susan was good enough to send along was dated 1953, was it? December 9th, 1953, which is why the 1954 date is hanging around. At the bottom of the permit, interestingly, it says that the street was changed to York Avenue in June of 1960. Before that, it was Bailey Avenue, for everyone's edification. And it looks as though they added that addition on the first floor in 1983. It's some sort of a family room there, 10 by 16 by 26, so it's kind of biggish. I don't know. The house does maintain its architectural integrity, which I'm happy to see. Besides the addition, there's vinyl siding. The windows look original. The front door looks original. I don't know. It's a cute little house. I'm sorry to see it go. I don't think I want to fight for it, but I think it's an example of basically an affordable home that are vanishing. I'm sorry to say that. So no, I have no other comments.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other discussion amongst the commissioners, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the building at 142, are we at 142 Forest?
No, it's
38.
York Avenue, 38 York Avenue.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking, there we go, is not preferably preserved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, I think we're gonna go with Tom since he wasn't muted. Tom and Matthew had a photo finish on the second, but we'll go with Tom. All right, I'm gonna do a roll then. Since Tom, you seconded it. Matthew, do you vote in favor of the motion? Matthew's shaking his head yes and raising his finger, and that's a yes. Susan, you made the motion, so Joe?
Yes, I vote in favor.
Thank you. Marilyn?
Yes,
You vote in favor as well. And David?
Yeah.
David?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So unanimous vote in favor of the motion that it's not properly preserved. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. I think you're going to really like the way we build in our products. We take a lot of pride in it. And so when you were talking at the last meeting about vinyl siding, I can relate to that. So I think you're going to see that we build a very good quality product.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Miller. Appreciate it. Good luck. Okay, the next item on the agenda is review of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to review, one from April 9th and one from May 14th. So if you could take a look at, let's start with the April 9th minutes.
I have a few little comments.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
As people, or maybe people haven't read it. On the second page, second paragraph, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down, he explains there have been 2 squatters. It says who living on the premise. I think we need to insert the word were living on the premises. It's just got left out. This is, in the next paragraph, this is really nitpicking, but I think nondescript is really one word, doesn't need a hyphen. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the minutes from April? All right, do I hear a motion?
I move that the minutes of the meeting on April 9th be accepted as modified.
And anybody second that motion?
Second,
Marilyn seconds the motion. I can't do all in favor. Tom, I'm sorry, I'm never gonna get used to this.
Yeah.
Matthew?
I vote yes.
Okay, Susan?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
yes,
And David?
Yes.
And I vote in favor, so the minutes will be accepted as modified.
I got
Moving
skipped,
on.
but yes.
Who did I skip?
That's all right. You skipped me. That's all right, though. I see how it is.
I did? Man, you're on your way out anyway, right? I didn't skip you. Sorry, Joe. Joe, do you vote yes?
Yes, I vote yes. I'm just joking.
It's now unanimous. I apologize. All right, I won't forget you on the second set of minutes. Now, any comments on the May 14th minutes?
Yes, I have one. First of all, the opening line, it repeats April 9th, 2020, should be May 14th.
Oh, that's why I opened it twice. I said, oh geez, how did I get the wrong one? Nice catch, Tom.
Yeah, and let's see. Oh, on the second page, the very last paragraph, it says, the focus of the alteration was explained by Mr. Melhuish is to entirely reposition the building. I think probably he meant repositioning the purpose of the building, something like that. They certainly were not moving the building or repositioning it.
Maybe it was the focus of the alteration was explained by Mr. Melhuish.
It's what it says now is to entirely reposition the building.
It
Yeah.
could have
Yeah,
been that I
That's a different view.
misheard, and maybe the word repurposing was used, and it sounded to me, I'm not a planner, but it may have sounded like reposition when it should have been repurposing. Is there a word that's
Purpose-
more appropriate?
I
than-
think repurposing is perfect, yeah,
Okay,
because
All
that's
right.
indeed what they're doing.
all right. Thank you,
And-
Tom.
Okay, then on the third page, second paragraph, what am I? Oh, second sentence, it says the additional of green space. I think you mean addition, and again, it's not additional. Or it could be the additional green space, leave out the of, either way. The additional of green space, not an additional of green, it's an addition of green space. And
So it's an addition of green space as opposed to additional green space.
the addition of green space would be fine. Just take off the AL. Yeah. And I think in the bottom of that page, it's under section 106 letter, Schreiber updated the commission. He had not been able. It's all right. Or you could say that, put a that in there between the commission and he. It's not a big point. But that's it for me.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments on the minutes?
Yes, on page 3 as well, just above item 3, starting with Steele asked, it should be on cladding, not clodding.
Oh. Yeah,
I kind of,
adding.
I kind of like the word cladding. Maybe we could use it for something else.
All right, any other comments or edits to the minutes? All right, if there are no other edits, do I hear a motion?
I move that the minutes of the, was it May 11th? No, no. What
14th,
was it? What is the date?
May 14th.
May 14th meeting be accepted as modified.
Anybody second that motion?
I'll second.
Susan Steele seconds, all,
There we
Joe,
go.
Joe, how do you feel
Hey,
about?
look at that. Yes, I agree.
Oh, Joe, do you want to vote twice to make up for last time? That would
These
be,
are important decisions right here. Important decisions.
Matthew,
I would vote yes.
okay, Marilyn,
Yes,
and David.
Yes.
And I vote to accept the minutes as modified. So, thank you. And now I can get back to my agenda. We have a discussion item. First discussion item is a section 106 letter World Tech regarding Mass DOT proposed project to rehabilitate Mount Auburn Street. Do we have any, I think, Gideon, at the last hearing, were you gonna
We
look
can-
into?
We sent you the links. Susan and I sent you links to the information. And it's on the agenda as a link as well. So that provides all the details of the Mount Auburn Street corridor, the design that's been submitted to MassDOT.
oh,
And so if, again, it's still going through the review process, and it's really the next phase that talks about the things that you identified at the last meeting as things that you might be interested in. So I would again suggest that if you feel that you would like to weigh in on those pieces, that you might want to consider writing a letter saying that you would like to be a part of the, process for making decisions on if there's interpretive signage, or if there's, if there's requirements where equipment has to go when you're looking at the, final details of the landscape plans, et cetera. Those aren't done yet.
Okay, and we discussed at the last meeting, the possibility of having input into, for example, putting something on the sidewalks or some kind of inobtrusive signage identifying historical places along Mount Auburn Street or points of fact. So you're saying that if we wanted to write a letter, this is the right phase to do that?
I'm saying that if you'd like to submit a letter to the town is the project manager on this, but MassDOT's the funding entity. So ultimately MassDOT approves the project. So you could write it to the town and to MassDOT, or I would suggest to the town, just showing your interest if that's what you'd like to do. Or you can, look at what's going on plan-wise, but these plans are really about where the road is and how the striping is going to be, and there's lots of details about that, but it doesn't get into the specifics. I don't think that you're talking about. There's a signal at there's a traffic signal being moved from the mid block in front of the Brigham House to Boylston, because that is a safer access point for access to the school. So that's taking something that's visible that's in one area and moving it to a better location, probably. I mean, there's some details like that you would see on these plans. And that link, which should be live on the agenda, would give you all the content. I mean, it's a lot. It's, several years worth of stuff, but there's also final MassDOT submitted plan set on there.
Yeah, the
So-
link is live on the agenda. I don't know if anyone had a chance to click it, but
I didn't, I'm sorry. I really didn't realize.
okay. Well, so do Susan or anybody who's interested in participating in the redesign of Mount Auburn Street, do you feel that you want to write a letter? Do you people want to feel that we want to table this to the next meeting?
So who, if we were to write something to the town, who would it go to get in?
Susan can coordinate that with you, but you have the letter. I don't have it in front of me anymore, but it came from World Tech, which is our consulting firm.
Mhm.
And I would assume you would either address it to World Tech or to, the town of Watertown and World Tech. I honestly don't remember if the World Tech letter came from them as our consultant or as MassDOT's, as a requirement of MassDOT.
Do they have any more open meetings planned?
There's I can't remember. It's been a while because it's been sitting
Yeah.
with MassDOT. I think that there may be a hearing that MassDOT holds after this. This is 25% design, so I think there's one more design phase. I think the town itself has had something like 20 meetings during the process, but.
And is this the first time something like this has come up in terms of, I don't even know how to describe it, but additions to scope or projects that could run in parallel and contribute to the streetscape?
No, I as staff for the historic district have been coordinating, looking at integrating historic district signage, which the chair of the historic district has been advocating for. So that could be integrated into the gateways into the historic district on both ends of the Mount Auburn Street corridor.
Okay. So it would make sense, it would make sense to piggyback on their efforts, I would think, in a way. I mean, they've made some inroads. I don't mean piggyback exactly, but to coordinate or to at least kind of understand what they're planning. And
like I said, there's no plans. This was an environmental requirement of the MassDOT submittal process.
Yeah.
So there's not detailed plans about the signage or other aspects. We walked the corridor, the town engineer, me, and the chair of the Historic District Commission. So that signage would be about just showing that you're actually entering this district, because today there's no signage there.
So the form that signage would take would be who would make that decision?
Well, it's funded by MassDOT, so they could reject something that we submitted, but it would be the town in coordination with the Historic District Commission, because they have, if it's in the right of way, it's the DPW's responsibility to make decisions, but they're definitely aware of and want to work with the Historic District.
Okay.
You're muted, Elise.
Sorry, Susan, are you interested in, I know, right? You couldn't hear me? Are you interested?
I can read lips.
Are you interested in drafting a letter of interest on behalf of the commission, or?
I could do that as soon as I get this historic flyer stuff off my plate. But I'm not sure what I would say. I mean, to me, it seems very nebulous and kind of all over the place. And that the Mount Auburn Historic District kind of has begun to think about creating some signage, but that hasn't taken form yet. And whether it makes any sense to coordinate with them about the types of signage they're thinking about. They seem further ahead than we are, than who designs the signage, who I don't know. It just seems like there are a lot of loose ends and a lot of people kind of peripherally involved. And
I would suggest to keep it simple and focused on just identifying that you would like to provide a resource to any type of signage. And based on what David said at the last meeting, you also you want to minimize clutter. So you identified 2 or 3 topic areas that you were concerned about. One is sign clutter, one is interpretive signage. Those can be conflicting with each other. And then you also talked about, David had mentioned some of the other concerns about where items go and how it might disrupt historic resources along the corridor. So
I'll tell you what, yeah, I agree with you, Gideon. I think keeping it simple and basic at this point, because of exactly the reasons you stated, Susan, and that seems like, I don't want to jump in.
I don't even know how to think about it to make it simple, really. Maybe somebody else would be better for this.
No worries, Susan. I'll take a stab at it and I'll run it by Gideon, and if everyone on the commission's okay with that, we can send it out for review by all of you and before we send it out to the town or even the Mount Auburn Historic District.
Thank you, Elise.
That work?
Sorry to bail, but I just I don't see a way in. My brain isn't that focused. Maybe.
You didn't bail. I asked you to do it. You didn't bail yet. If you said yes and then you didn't do it, that's bailing. All right. Is there any other discussion on the section 106 letter? No? Okay, then let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is Arsenal on the Charles, submissions to Mass Historical Commission by Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc. and Epsilon, 343 Arsenal Street and 100 Talcott Ave update and 300 North Beacon Street letter.
Yeah, so that was a submittal that came into staff. We didn't coordinate with them with an expectation that they would need to provide any presentation or response, but I did notice that there are a number of participants in the meeting right now that represent the Arsenal on the Charles site. So I would not want to, speak for it if they want to speak to it, but I do have both submittals queued up to put on the screen if you all want to take a look at what it is. It's funny, when I queue it up, I can't see you anymore. I can only see the presentation. So I'm not sure if you want to just talk about what was submitted, if you all have it, or if you want me to go through the first one, the 100 Talcott, and basically they suggested 2 different colors that will help it recede. Do you want that on the screen for everybody? And do you want to take it, A and then B?
Let's take it A and then B, yeah.
So A would be, so essentially it's a white and a gray. At least that's what the colors appeared to me on my screen. Is that right? The color, the finish or the color of the mechanical box.
This is David. That's what I see.
Yeah. And so there's a light gray, a lighter gray, and then a darker gray. The darker gray is more consistent with the color of the roof.
Right. That's what I was thinking as well.
can you see the screen? I'm not sure if you guys can see it.
Yeah,
as
we
well,
can
but-
see it now.
Big
Mhm.
difference.
Darker gray looks less obtrusive. Doesn't stand out as much.
Yeah.
Since David, I'm not sure I really have any comments. While I may prefer one versus the other, I'm not really sure it matters. So
Anybody have any other comments? Did everybody hear David's comment?
Yes.
I did, yeah. Well, I'd vote gray or the darker color. Of the two choices.
And this is basically providing them with your opinion, as this is a, you know, a determination by Mass Historic, but the color is not part of that from that perspective. That gets into
Oh, I
more
see what
detail
you're
than I
saying.
think.
Okay,
Like,
I
so,
see
so
what you-
if you're providing some advice to the Arsenal and the Charles team who is on this call, that's great. So I don't know if you need to have a formal vote or anything because it's not like a decision, it's not a hearing. It's
okay.
Just to
if you wanted
discuss.
to write a letter, if you want to make a recommendation and have it written in a letter format or something, or, you know, formal communication from staff, then you
Okay,
could take a vote, say, we want the darker gray. We prefer that.
well,
I guess this is where I weigh in and say, I don't really care.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, unless someone cares strenuously, we have a David doesn't matter, Matthew, I don't really care. Joe?
Yeah, I'm with David. I mean, I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference. If I had to pick, I'd go with the darker gray.
If you had to pick, you'd go with the what?
The darker of the two.
Okay. Tom?
I feel much the same way. I think we'd have to indicate this is our preference. It's a question of preference. It's not enormously significant, but probably the gray would be a little better.
Marilyn?
I like the darker gray, but it doesn't really matter that much to me.
Okay, and we already heard that David thinks that way too, so they're on the call. I'm sure they've heard the various calls for dark gray. And hopefully that works. If not, it's okay. All right, is that it for 343 Arsenal?
Yeah, and you're gonna, would you like me to turn on the screen for the second?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is gonna crack you guys up because on this PowerPoint, one of the words is repositioning. So anyways. So they wrote a letter, which you saw, which basically identifies that this building is in this district, but it's also not considered one of the original historic resources within this district. That's my summary, and I might be slightly butchering that. And then they show a context plan again. And then here's that word, reposition building to support life science and research lab use. So I don't think that's a planning term, Susan, FYI. And then they show some graphics, which I think are pretty neat, of the historic aerial views of the site. And then they show historic equipment from the old days in 1962. They show some nice old cars.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like the station wagon.
Land yachts.
Is it a Valiant?
The Volkswagen, the little Beetle.
Oh, and you off in the distance see that dome right there. That's the the reactor, right?
Nuclear.
And then they show the master plan that had been reviewed by you in the past. So it was just a reminder of what the master plan had been looking at. They show some existing plans of what's going on at that building. And then they show this proposed setback substantially from the edge of the building, perforated metal screen centered on the building. There is also existing material up on the roof, so that would be for HVAC. And then to the rear, they talk about a few changes that I know you all had. So you can see the elevator and a few other minor changes. And is everyone there still?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And then
We're here.
there's a call coming, or that was a weird noise. And then that's a view from the top, which obviously you wouldn't normally be dealing with that much as much. So that's that. Do you have questions about this before I take the screen share off so I can see everybody again?
Anybody have questions?
No.
No.
Okay. I can always pop it back on again, but.
Okay. Okay. So does that take care of A, and we have the 300 North Beacon Street letter? We already saw that?
This is the, yeah, that's the 300 North Beacon Street. There's a 2-page letter and then the attached plans to show what they were doing. And again, this is like the other one. You're allowed to have, you can provide your opinion to Mass Historic, who ultimately makes a decision on whether it's impactful to the the historical aspects of the site as a whole.
Okay. Does anybody, David, do you have something you want to say?
Sure. So I appreciate the information, the background. I knew it was a piano factory at one point. I didn't know the exact date, so 1922 is important. That's great. It's great that they also, back in 1922, chose to build the building in a style that's so close to what you'd see at the Arsenal. You know, they didn't slavishly imitate what was there, but clearly they had the Arsenal in mind as they developed their plans, which is nice to see, which is why I think it's considered contributing. There are a number of alterations on the north side of the property. There is that metal work that's sort of a little unusual looking, and certainly nothing else you'd see on the Arsenal property. And there's certainly machinery on the top of the building, and it seems like there has been for some time. I don't know if I have any comments per se. This building certainly, there's quite a bit of architectural integrity with it, and there's been some good alteration on it too. So I guess I'm happy that the alteration has generally been in the back of it on the north side. But I'm not sure I have any real comments other than that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for comments? No? Okay. Well, if there are no further comments on that, do I hear a motion? Or were we gonna review the letter, David? The updated letter?
Yeah, it was sent out.
Oh, no, that letter, that's for,
Not all.
that letter that you're talking about is for the Mount Auburn Cemetery.
Yeah,
Right, but we were gonna, okay, I thought we were gonna review it, no? Did everybody get it?
Wait,
Yes.
what?
Has it already been sent?
It hasn't, no.
Oh,
So
Well-
I just, if we can just close the loop on this Arsenal property, first 300 North Beacon Street. So do we have to make a decision as to what we're going to do with this, if anything?
I think Gideon just said the only thing we can do is write an opinion letter, no?
Yeah, I mean, so you can decide that you have no comments, and then, you know, the state typically would reach out to us, and to be honest, there may be a letter sitting somewhere at the town that I have not seen, because our mail system has collapsed during this time frame. So I really appreciate that the Arsenal and the Charles and Alexandria have reached out directly to us, because I have seen, like, I did see some communication from, in regard to the other letter or the other site, but I hadn't seen anything from MHC for this. So they normally would submit a letter to the commission, MHC would, but their systems have broken down and ours are not the best either. So so you could just make, you know, you can choose to not make any comments, and it's fine. But it would be good to wrap it up instead of having it just be open.
Mm.
If you're deciding to move on, I don't.
Does anybody have an opinion? Do they feel they want an opinion letter written on our behalf? You want to wait to see if there's a letter? David?
Well, I think if Mass Historic is sending us a letter, it's basically going to say, if you have any comments, please send them to this address or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm reading this, they're requesting that if we have any comments to send it, and they'll make sure to share it with Mass Historic. So they're requesting, thank you for your review of the enclosed materials. To facilitate the review process, a copy of the submittal is being submitted to you. We will provide a copy of any comments received, if any, from WHC to MHC.
Okay. So
So
as a
that
commission,
just facilitates, yeah.
yeah. Question is, do we want to write any comments? David, you're our resident author. Do you think it, well, first, does anybody think we need to write a letter with an opinion?
I don't mind writing a letter with opinions in it. I just don't think there really have been any expressed one way or another.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm asking the first question of, does anybody think we have an opinion? And if so, I was going to move on to, David, will you write that opinion?
Well,
I knew you'd say yes, David. It was really rhetorical. Does anybody have a strong opinion? Not even a strong opinion, an opinion one way or another on this?
No.
Okay. I'm getting a no from Susan, a no from Joe, 2 no's from Joe to make up for last time. Tom?
No.
No. Matthew? No, he's shaking his head. No. Marilyn?
Fine with it.
Okay.
No, nothing to add.
Okay. David?
I have no comments.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like we need to embark on an opinion letter, since we don't have really an opinion.
I can convey that there is not an opinion,
Okay.
Thank you
if
very
there's
much.
a question.
Okay. All right, super. So that wraps up that, but I still want to get onto the Marne Auburn letter, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So in January, after the approval of this commission, I wrote a letter to the Massachusetts Cultural Facilities Fund. Mount Auburn Cemetery had submitted a grant application for some restoration work of the Washington Tower. They apparently did not get that, even though I had written a stunningly great letter. I should have gotten that much money and more. So what they would like us to do is to simply reissue the letter. There's the National Trust apparently has a grant program, and they wish to submit the same application for that. So we just simply would keep the same commentary and language, and just change the addressee. So I know this commission has already approved this letter before, so I'm hoping that that would be fine again, just to simply change the addressee.
Well, you
Sounds
can't see
good to
the
me.
heads, but Marilyn says it sounds good to her. Tom?
Absolutely. I thought the letter was terrific before, and I think it should, by all means, send it to whoever needs to get it.
Okay, Matthew?
I'm all for it.
Susan?
Yep, all for it.
Joe?
Yep, get it to the right place.
Joe again?
Yeah.
I am so funny tonight, I can't even take it. All right, David, I think we all agree, change the addressee and send her out.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, David, for writing that. Okay, and so that is the end of our agenda. If there's nothing else, I'd love to hear a motion.
Can I bring something up?
Sure can, Matthew.
My bid to make myself as unpopular as possible. I was wondering what the status of the ordinance and the proposed changes were, and if that's something that we could better address by not having it always at the tail end of a meeting where we're all tired and exhausted. I wondered if it's possible to have an outside of the official meeting, where we either Zoom, or I would host a backyard meeting where I have a big enough backyard we could socially distance and talk about it, just to kind of hash through where we are and where we want to go with that, because it seems like we're not really getting anywhere on that.
Yeah, so I agree with you. The end of the agenda is not a great place for it. And then COVID happened, and we had talked about having a special working group outside of the commission to work on it. So since this wasn't a temporary thing and this is the new normal, Zooming and such, if anybody interested in being on the working committee and either Zooming about it or meeting in Matthew's big backyard.
I think meeting in the backyard would be lots of fun.
Okay, so working committee of Matthew, Susan, I'd like to be on it. Marilyn?
Mm,
You don't have to, there's no pressure, Marilyn.
I do want to remind everyone that even if it's a meeting in the backyard, you do have to limit the number, or you end up with a quorum, which therefore would be considered an actual meeting.
Oh dear.
That's right.
So it's still, that's why, so you can have a working group, but you can't, you have to have advertisement. If it's more than a certain number, you have to take minutes
So
and
can we
advertise it.
have two working groups that don't meet at
But
the same time?
So working
no,
group
the
is,
open meeting law is pretty clear that if you're trying to, if you're, deliberating, even if it's two groups that end up coming together. I mean, so you can have a working group that is less than the quorum of your meeting.
That's 3 then would be the most. Is that correct?
Yeah, 'cause with four,
Yeah,
right,
there
you
have
can
to
make
be.
a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the commission.
What about you, Gideon? Would you be able to attend? Because I think you'd be pretty important to this process.
Yeah, I can attend, but I do have to admit, right now I'm very overloaded. A lot of stuff at the town. We're at low capacity, and we're having to go in, but there's a lot of moving parts going on with the pandemic response.
yeah.
So right now it's definitely not the highest on my brain, but I would love to be part of it.
Maybe we should do a preliminary meeting, just whatever the minimum number the maximum number can be. And then maybe once we formulate it a bit more, get it to the point where we could ask Gideon to come along and be involved.
And I don't mind being in it. If I'm coordinating, I think it'll be hard for me because I'm coordinating so many different meetings right now.
Yeah, I think
So
Matthew, at the other end of it, where we actually have a working modification, then maybe when we talk about that at the meeting, that'd be Gideon is going to be at that meeting anyway, and that will be extra meetings on top of his 50 million meetings to begin with. That way he can participate but not have to attend more meetings.
Right. Well, that would be great. I mean, if Susan and yourself would like to start this process off with a backdoor meeting at whenever your convenience is. And I think there's only one or 2 weeks of the summer I'm not going to be here. Otherwise, I'd be, weather permitting, I'd be, actually, we could do it on our front porch, which is big also. So weather regardless.
As long as you didn't mean backdoor and you meant backyard.
Backyard, that's right.
I just want to make sure. Open meeting laws don't permit backdoor meetings.
You know,
Okay, so
I'm also thinking one of the things we might do even before we meet, just to have something to chew over, would be to look around and see what other
Yes.
ordinances, what other types of ordinances there are that might be good models.
Yeah.
I thought we had that already.
Yeah.
Do we have it?
we did,
Oh,
we
we
passed
could-
it
we
on a
could
meeting.
review
It
it.
might not have been there.
We
Okay,
have
so we can review it.
Several examples, yeah.
Okay, so we'll put those together and then I'll send Susan and Matthew, I'll send you an email offline after meeting to coordinate our first in-person socially distanced masked front porch backyard meeting.
Yes, sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, a motion?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
We have nothing left to talk about. No one wants to motion to adjourn. What kind of group do we have here?
I'll say it.
I'll motion twice.
All right, Tom actually motioned first. Joe, would you like to second that
Or I'll
twice?
second twice. Yes.
Get it? You seconded it twice. You like that? You see where I went with that?
Get a little punchy. It's late.
And I'm going to roll this one. Matthew, in favor of adjourning?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for another
Have a good
great-
night.
Have a good night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Good night.